Today we're going to learn how to adjust your shifting, and that includes both your front derailleur and also your rear derailleur. So the front derailleur changes the gears in your front 2 or 3 gears, or you may not have a front derailleur altogether in the 1x systems, and your rear derailleur. So this can be anywhere from 11 to 5 to even 3. They're all pretty much the same, and we'll go into that. So let's get started. So the tools you'll need is, if your bike has already been set up and you notice that it just recently started to have some shifting problems, you really might just need your fingers. But let's say you haven't checked it in a while, or maybe you just want to double check. There's a couple other tools you'll need. And it's a Phillips screwdriver. Let's get started. Alright, so what you're going to want to do to get started is put your front chain in the most inside gear, and the same thing. You want to put the chain on the most inside gear, and that's called your lowest gear. So we'll do that. Now that we're adjusted, let's see how the positioning should be.
Okay, now that we have our chain on the inside gear, on both front and the back, what we're looking for is about a 1 millimeter gap in between the inside of the derailleur cage and also in between our chain. Now let's say you've changed into this lowest gear and it's rubbing. Where you want to grab is a Phillips. And every derailleur will have 2 adjustment screws located here and here. Now for me, this inside one is for the low gear, so low and slow, so that's the inside gear. And then the outermost one is for the high gear, that's the outside chainring. So right now, because we're interested in adjusting our inside gear, we're only concerned with this screw. And this is called a limit screw. And basically what it's going to do is limit how much the derailleur can come in and out. So you'll see as I turn the screwdriver counterclockwise, the gap opens up. And as I turn the screwdriver clockwise, the gap narrows. So like I said, what we're looking for is a 1 millimeter gap. Basically just a little bit of space, so that in the easiest gear, you know your chain's not going to rub. And that's how you adjust your inside limit screw. Now there's also, need to pay attention to cable tension. So you can see that the cable is pretty loose. So sometimes front derailleurs do not come with barrel adjusters. This is a barrel adjuster, and as you twist it clockwise or counterclockwise, you can adjust the tension on that cable. So what we're interested in doing is tightening up that cable. So it's going to be pretty loose. So what we do is we tighten that cable. So on the barrel adjuster, it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Now we can see that our cable tension is a little bit tighter. Now depending on your shifter, you may want it to be a little loose. It doesn't necessarily have to be really tight. So for my shifter, it actually works best if it's a little loose. So now let's switch to adjusting our high limit screw. So we just adjusted our low limit screw. Now let's switch to our high limit screw.
So for that, you're going to want to adjust your chain into the biggest gear in the front, and then all the way to the outside on the smallest gear in the back. Let's do that.
now we've adjusted our chain into the big gear in front, into the highest gear in the back, which is the smallest gear. So now we can see we're also looking for about a 1 millimeter space between the chain and the outside of the rear cage. So you can see as I turn the screw counterclockwise, it increases the gap, and as I turn the cage clockwise, the gap narrows. So you're going to want to adjust that until you've got about 1 millimeter. Alright, and now you've just adjusted your front derailleur.
So now, let's switch gears and work on our rear derailleur. And most of the time, this is where you're going to have your issues. So let's say you're riding along and you hear,
and we get this nasty clicking. So that clicking means the chain is trying to shift, but it's not quite able to grab to the next gear. And this could be up the cassette or down the cassette. It can be in either way. But basically what we want to do is go all the way into your small gear. And from here, we want to make sure that our chain is lined up from our cassette all the way down to our derailleur pulley and including our bottom derailleur pulley. So now a derailleur, just like the front derailleur, also has limit screws. We have a high limit screw and a low limit screw. These may have symbols, they may not. Mine has an L and mine has an H. Now because I'm in the smallest gear, this is the high gear. So basically high speed, high gear. Now for example, my derailleur might want to pull too far outside the cassette. So you can see in this case, my gear on the cassette is not in line with the top pulley. So what you're going to do is adjust your high limit screw clockwise until your pulley on your derailleur is in line or just slightly to the outside of your chain. It doesn't have to be perfectly lined up. It's almost good to have it slightly past your cassette. This way the spring in the derailleur has room when it's shifting down the cassette to have enough force to pull the chain over. Alright, so now you've set your high limit screw. Now let's go adjust our lower limit screw. And make sure our chain is lined up with this top pulley again. And similarly, for this derailleur, you want it slightly past the cassette. So you can see in the case here, where the lower pulley is slightly past the cassette. It doesn't need to be that far, but just slightly. So let's adjust our lower limit screw. Let's get it just past.
so now we've adjusted both of our limit screws on a rear derailleur. Now there's one more tension that we have to check, and that is the cable tension. Now for this, you don't need any tools, and once you've initially set up the limit screws, while you're out on the road if you're having shifting problems, or just if you're keeping up your maintenance, you don't need any more tools. You'll just be using your fingers. So let's check it out. So starting on your inside gear, let's move down the cassette to our high gear. So as I'm trying to move the chain outside, I gave it 2 clicks, but there was no movement. So now you'll want to grab the barrel adjuster on your rear derailleur, and you want to turn it clockwise away from the bike to help the chain move in that direction. Or if you're having problems going up the cassette to a low gear, you want to turn the barrel adjuster counterclockwise towards the direction of the chainer. So we're going to give it a quarter of a turn until the chain jumps. Because I've already shifted in front and it didn't shift. So as I increase the tension on the cable, it should adjust one gear. So let's do that. Alright, it shifted. I gave it a quarter of a turn and it shifted. So let's go back and try to shift another gear down the cassette. That one worked okay. Alright, now we have the cable tension coming down the cassette, but we also want to verify that we can shift up the cassette back into a low gear. So let's try that. Okay, in this case it worked. The cable tension's just right. But sometimes as you're adjusting your cable tension to come down the cassette, you can go too far. So if you're doing more than a quarter turn, maybe you did a half turn instead, as you go up the cassette to a low gear, it may have trouble going back up. So what you're going to do is basically undo the turn, so counterclockwise, just a quarter of a turn until that gear goes back up. And once you have the cable tension set up in between two of the gears, all of the gears should work, regardless if you've got 3 gears, 5 gears, 6, 7, all the way to 11. All the gears in between the high and the low should work, as long as you have the cable tension set for just 2 gears. Shifts good. Now another common problem is that, let's say you've got a fancy stand and are doing your adjustments indoors. It's pretty common that once you go out on the road, your shifting might not be crisp. But the best part is you don't need any tools. So if you have problems going from a low gear to a high gear, coming out your chain going away from the bike, then you just turn your barrel adjuster in the same direction you want the chain to go, clockwise. Now let's say you're having problems going into an easier gear, so a low gear, you turn the barrel adjuster into the same direction you want the chain to go, so counterclockwise. And then you might have to do this repeated amount of times, maybe a quarter mile or a half mile, and just keep shifting up and down until you get the cable tension just right. Alright, so let's say you've done all these steps and your shifting still isn't working right. That might mean you need to replace your cables. Well, you say, well, my cable's not broken. Well, inside of this cable is a plastic tubing. And inside the tubing, you can get grease buildup, dirt buildup, you can get moisture, so your cables are rusting. And it's also, the liner could be breaking down. So you'll know when you need to change your cables is when you're having problems shifting into a higher gear. So when you're trying to go faster. And basically, there's so much friction built up in your whole cable that the spring inside of your rear derailleur is not strong enough to pull the chain out. So the derailleur is always trying to pull the chain away from the bike. It's always trying to pull the chain to the highest gear. When you shift, when you shift into a lower gear, you're actually putting more tension on the cable, so your derailleur is forced to move inward. When you shift into a higher gear, you're releasing the cable tension, so the derailleur can go back to its normal state. So if you're having problems shifting coming down the cassette, going into a higher gear, and you've done all this tweaking on the stand and on the road, then it might be time to invest into some new cables. So before you go investing in some new cables, there's also one more easy check that you can do. And basically, that's to check the wear on your chain. So chains are designed to wear out. This way it saves your crank, and it also will save your cassette and also your derailleur. It's meant to wear out, they're inexpensive to change, so keep up your maintenance and you'll get quite a bit of wear out of it, but it's still something to keep in check. So how you adjust that is a chain stretch ruler. And basically what's going to do is this particular one from Park Tool has two sides. Now on the one side it has a shorter length, and that's going to tell you when you should be considering getting a new chain. So let's go see how my chain's doing. So I'm going to use the smallest guide.
So I'm going to hook the chain into one of the bearings of the chain, making sure it's flush. And then all you have to do is press the tool down. And you can see that the chain is laying flat against the tool. That means you have at least 0.5% wear. Now at this point you should be considering changing your chain, but there's also one more test you can do, and that's for the maximum wear. So on this tool there is a 0.5 and also a 0.75. So on the larger setting you can see that the chain is not able to rest against the tool. So that means potentially I have a little bit more life left in the chain, but I should still consider replacing it at the next opportunity. And that is the Park Tool CC 3.2 chain check.